First, it needs to be put out there that this is the very first public meeting to get people's input and to have public participation in what we think could be something really special for our community. When I first was elected, I became more intimately knowledgeable about some of the things going on in the city. And one of them was this incredible collection of Black history artifacts that Anna Moniz John has collected over her lifetime. And those Black history artifacts, many of you have probably heard about her traveling mobile museum. She's had it throughout the city at different events. And what really inspired me one time was when I went to a display that she put on at URI. And I learned so much from that brief visit about the history of Black American history based on the artifacts that she has collected over her lifetime. So early on, I have had a desire to find a permanent home for these artifacts. I think it's important. She's a city resident, she's collected this, and if you haven't seen it, I hope someday you have the opportunity to see what she's collected, because it tells the true story of African Americans in this country. Additionally, what I've learned, having been mayor, is that we have a rich indigenous people's history right here in East Providence. The Pokanoket Nation and the Saloms Heritage Area is very much a part of East Providence. The John Hunt House, I've learned quite a deal about John Hunt and the John Hunt House. And John Hunt was a person around the colonial era when a lot of people were dealing with the Native American indigenous people and later on the slave trade. So we started thinking out loud, saying, hey, how can we create a repository for this great collection of Black history artifacts and perhaps bring in the indigenous peoples that are germane to our region and have a cultural center where we can have all of these things on display in a secure area where people can come and learn, like I learned from that one visit at URI when that display was up there. And I'll tell you, it was moving. So when we started discussing it, the early discussion was, hey, what can we do with the Caleb Williams home, which is that tiny home there? We said, what can we do with the Caleb Williams home? Can we refurbish that, fix that, and make that the place where we have these artifacts stored? And we had people look at it, and it really is not big enough for that kind of use, right? So we ended up contracting with David Sisson, who was a local architect here in East Providence, and we asked him, we told him what we were looking to do, and we said, hey Dave, just put together a preliminary concept so we could bring people together, get their feedback, and then see where we can go from here, right? So David put together a 4,300 square foot rendition of his first rendition, but it doesn't mean that this is going to be the final rendition. It doesn't mean that this is anywhere near the final rendition, because we want to get your input. And I'm going to call on David in a minute to come up and speak about what he was thinking with this plan and the great features of the plan that would be able to serve not only the East Providence Historical Society and their needs to store artifacts safely in a climate-controlled environment, but also would be something where our community would have the place to go learn about the history that impacted our community that is often lost and forgotten. Black history, slave trade, and indigenous peoples, who were very much a part of our community and the evolution of where we are today as a city. So it's exciting to me. I understand that people get nervous when they start hearing about different things getting done, but we really want your input. We want this to fit in to the Hunts Mills historic site. And one of the things that we envision is that this would be a facility that's run very similar to how the John Hunt House Museum is run, by volunteers who would be opening the facility by appointment or on a regular, once a weekend or once every other weekend, so that people would have the opportunity to come down and see some of these artifacts and to learn about East Providence history. Now, I'll be open to questions later. But I am going to call on David to explain what his thought process was with the first rendition of the design. And then, just so you understand, right now people say, where's the funding? Right now we don't have funding for this. We're putting this out there, hold on, we're putting this out there because we want your buy-in, we want your input, we want your ideas to shape what we come up with, and then we're going to push that project to try to get federal funding or funding to the Rhode Island Foundation or funding to other organizations that have money for these type of cultural centers, especially when it comes to preserving and educating people on Black history. So I am super excited about this. I hope that by the end of this presentation, you are as excited as I am. And I want your input. I really want your input. So I'm going to call on David